You're such a good doggy. I love you so much.
The morning light spilled softly through the tall windows of the small animal shelter. Dust motes floated lazily in the golden rays, catching the warmth like tiny sparks suspended in the air. Sarah moved quietly among the cages, humming a gentle tune she often sang to calm the dogs. The air smelled faintly of laundry and wood, a comforting scent she had grown to love over the years. Cooper, the golden-brown Labrador mix, lay stretched out near the entrance, his fur glowing in the sunlight. His tail swished lazily at first, then slowed to a gentle stop. Sarah paused mid-step, her eyes catching the subtle shift. He lifted his head, ears tilting slightly, eyes fixed on the ceiling. "Cooper, what is it?" Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. She crouched beside him, hand hovering above his back, unsure whether to touch or simply observe. There was no barking, no growling, only the intensity in his gaze. Every muscle in his body was calm, yet alert. It was a look she had seen before, rare moments when Cooper seemed to sense something invisible, a subtle presence beyond the reach of human eyes. Minutes passed. Light shifted across the room, brushing the edges of his fur with warmth. Sarah felt a gentle ache in her chest, not fear, but curiosity, wonder. She leaned closer, noting the faint tilt of his head, the slow rise and fall of his chest. Something was there, something she couldn't see. Other dogs lounged nearby, oblivious. Only Cooper held the room in a hush, like a silent sentinel. Sarah's heartbeat matched his calm focus, a quiet rhythm in the stillness. She remembered small moments from the past, Cooper nudging a lost puppy towards safety, tilting his head as if listening to whispers of someone's pain, sensing when a frightened dog needed calm. It was subtle, quiet, almost magical in its tenderness. And now, he held that same quiet intensity, focused on something unseen. A breeze stirred the curtains, the sunlight catching the soft edges of Cooper's fur. His gaze never wavered. Sarah felt an unspoken connection, like he was reaching into a place beyond her sight, guiding her silently toward understanding. She crouched lower, breath shallow, heart full. Something important was unfolding, something she could not yet name. She watched as Cooper's tail gave a small, almost imperceptible wag, like a signal, a call to attention. And then, as if in that moment all the warmth and quiet of the morning had condensed into a single pulse of meaning, Sarah felt it, a weight, a presence, a truth hovering in the sunlight above. Her hand gently rested on his back. He didn't move, didn't flinch, just stared. And in that stillness, in that quiet focus, Sarah realized something profound. Cooper's attention was purposeful, connected, meaningful. What the dog sensed would change everything. Before we continue, remember to like and subscribe for more emotional dog stories. And tell me, where are you watching from? I love reading your comments. The next morning, the shelter was quieter than usual. Sunlight streamed through the high windows, painting the floor with long, soft rectangles of gold. Sarah moved slowly, deliberately, her mind still lingering on Cooper's behavior from the day before. Every time she thought about it, a ripple of curiosity and a subtle, unnameable wonder filled her chest. Cooper was already awake, lying near the same spot on the rug. His eyes lifted as she approached, warm and steady, yet carrying that same intensity she had seen before. He shifted slightly, ears perking, and nudged her hand with a gentle push of his nose. Sarah smiled, a quiet laugh escaping her lips. "You're already at it again, aren't you, boy?" She watched as he slowly rose to his feet and walked to the corner of the room. There, near the ceiling, his eyes focused on a faint shadow where the sunlight hit a corner of the wall. He tilted his head, sniffed the air lightly, and pawed at the floor once, softly, deliberately, then returned to her side. Sarah knelt down beside him. "Cooper, are you trying to tell me something?" she murmured. Her voice was calm, patient, soft, an invitation rather than a command. Cooper responded with a small nuzzle, then sat, tail curled neatly around his paws, eyes fixed again on that corner. She felt it then, the gentle pull of intuition, the sense that Cooper wasn't just noticing something, he was guiding her, showing her where to look, what to consider. She had seen hints before, how he instinctively knew which new dog needed comfort, or how he would pause near a cage as if listening to the past echo of forgotten paws. But today felt different. Sarah grabbed a small notebook and pen from the nearby desk. She had learned to trust him, to record the small, quiet moments that often went unnoticed by others. Every time Cooper stared or nudged or tilted his head, she jotted it down: time, behavior, location, intensity. Minutes turned to hours as she observed him. Cooper moved from one part of the room to another, never rushing, always precise. He pawed gently at an empty crate near the far wall, then walked to the middle of the room and sat again, eyes scanning the ceiling. He was deliberate, thoughtful, almost reverent in the way he moved, as though he were sensing something beyond the ordinary. Sarah couldn't help but feel a swell of emotion in her chest. Here was a dog so connected, so attuned to the world in ways she could not fully understand. She knelt beside him, hand resting lightly on his back, heart beating slowly in quiet rhythm with his calm presence. As the sunlight shifted again, a faint pattern of shadows danced along the walls, barely noticeable to anyone but Cooper. He rose once more, walked toward the center of the room, and stopped. Eyes locked on a spot near the ceiling. Then, softly, he gave a low whine, a sound of gentle insistence. Sarah held her breath. She could feel it. Cooper was not just looking, he was signaling, hinting at something that mattered, something unseen. She had no idea what it could be, but her heart knew it was important. She spoke softly, almost reverently. "Okay, let's see what you're trying to show me." Cooper wagged his tail faintly, as if pleased she understood, and sat obediently by her side. The rest of the morning passed in quiet observation. Cooper continued his subtle guidance, nudging her toward corners, pausing, tilting his head, watching the smallest flickers of light or shadow. Each movement was intentional, purposeful, as though he were gently leading her to a truth she couldn't yet see. By midday, Sarah was overwhelmed with emotion. She felt awe, gratitude, and a tender ache all at once. Cooper's intuition was a quiet force, powerful not in noise or aggression, but in patience, attention, and gentle guidance. Every dog in the room seemed to sense it too. Even the most nervous or shy animals watched him with curiosity, as if they recognized something special. Sarah stood and stretched, looking down at Cooper. "I don't know what you're sensing, Cooper, but I trust you," she said quietly. He nudged her hand again, eyes soft but unwavering. She felt a shiver of connection run through her, the kind that only comes from understanding that a being, however small, is showing you a world you cannot yet see. As the sun began to dip lower, casting long golden beams across the room, Sarah gathered her courage. "Tomorrow, we'll set up the cameras," she whispered. Cooper wagged his tail slightly, a quiet acknowledgement. In that soft, golden light, surrounded by the warmth of the shelter and the gentle rhythm of his breathing, Sarah realized something profound. Cooper's intuition was not just a quirk or habit. It was purpose. Intent. A bridge between what humans could see and what dogs could sense, a silent guide toward understanding, connection, and perhaps, something more. And in the back of her mind, she knew, deep down, that the truth behind Cooper's focus was waiting, just beyond the ordinary, in the quiet spaces of the shelter, ready to be revealed. The morning sun slanted through the tall shelter windows, casting long, golden streaks across the wooden floors. The scent of fresh laundry and warm wood mingled with the faint, earthy smell of the dog's bedding. Sarah entered the room slowly, carrying a small clipboard and her ever-present notebook. Her mind was preoccupied with Cooper. He was already awake, sitting near the rug by the entrance, eyes alert and focused. His gaze lifted as soon as she stepped inside, locking with hers in a moment of quiet understanding. He tilted his head slightly, as though silently urging her to pay attention. Sarah knelt beside him. "You're at it again, huh?" she whispered softly. Cooper's tail gave a faint, approving wag, his calm intensity a gentle invitation. She had begun to notice patterns, small gestures, nudges, and moments of intense focus, each pointing to something she couldn't see. And now, curiosity had taken root. By mid-morning, she had made a decision. She would set up cameras in the shelter. Not for security, not for monitoring the dog's care, but to understand Cooper. She needed to see what he was noticing when she wasn't watching. Every detail, every subtle movement, could be important. The cameras clicked softly into place, strategically positioned to cover the areas where Cooper had been most focused: the far corner of the room, the wall near the ceiling, and the quiet corridor that led to the small storage room. Sarah tested each camera, ensuring it captured every angle, every shift of light, and every subtle motion. Cooper sat nearby, watching her work with patient curiosity, as if approving her plan. Once everything was set, she leaned back against a chair, notebook in hand, and observed. Cooper moved deliberately, his golden brown fur catching the sunlight. He paused at the far wall, pawed lightly, sniffed the air, then returned to the center of the room, sitting calmly with eyes fixed on the ceiling. Sarah wrote down every detail: the position of his ears, the tilt of his head, the slight quiver of his tail. Hours passed. Cooper's behavior didn't change. He was methodical, purposeful. Sarah's curiosity grew into something deeper, a quiet fascination, almost reverent. She had always trusted him, yes, but now she wanted to see what he was seeing, to understand the world through his quiet, intuitive gaze. At one point, Cooper stood and walked toward the empty crate near the corner. He sniffed and pawed gently, then turned to look at her. She leaned closer. "What are you trying to show me?" she murmured. He gave a soft whine, almost as if responding to her question. It was subtle, but to Sarah, it felt like a direct message. She reviewed the footage from the first camera. At first, nothing seemed obvious. Shadows shifted with the sunlight. Dust motes floated lazily. But then she noticed it, a faint movement in the corner of the room. A shadow that seemed to linger longer than it should, a ripple that passed when no one else was moving. Cooper had been focused on that same spot, and now the footage confirmed it. Her heart quickened, not in fear, but in awe. There was something there, something important, something that had drawn Cooper's attention and kept it unwavering for hours. She leaned back in her chair, feeling a swell of emotion. It was more than curiosity now. It was respect, admiration, wonder. She thought of all the subtle ways Cooper had guided her in the past. How he had comforted shy dogs, nudged them toward safety, or paused in front of certain cages as if listening to unspoken stories. She realized that this quiet, methodical behavior wasn't random. It was intelligence. Intuition. Purpose. As the sun began to dip lower, painting the room in a deeper gold, Sarah whispered, "I don't know what you're sensing, Cooper, but I want to understand it." He nudged her hand lightly, tail sweeping the floor in a gentle arc. She felt a quiet thrill, a connection, a partnership, a silent trust forming between human and dog. The footage in Cooper's behavior had opened a door. Sarah knew that she was standing on the threshold of something extraordinary. Cooper's intuition was more than simple awareness. It was guidance, a bridge between the visible and invisible, the known and the mysterious. And as the shelter settled into evening, the soft hum of heaters and the gentle breathing of the dogs filled the air. Cooper lay down, eyes still glancing occasionally at the ceiling. Sarah sat beside him, notebook in hand, heart full of anticipation. She felt it in the air, a quiet promise that the truth behind Cooper's behavior was waiting, just beyond what she could see. The bond between them had deepened. Sarah realized that Cooper was not just a dog she cared for, he was a guide, a gentle presence leading her toward understanding something she had not yet imagined. And in that warm, golden light, Sarah allowed herself to wonder, what was Cooper seeing, that she could not? The morning at the shelter felt softer than usual, as if the sunlight itself was careful, spilling gold across the wooden floors and dust motes in gentle swirls. Sarah moved slowly, carrying a warm mug of coffee, her eyes drawn again and again to Cooper, who lay quietly on the rug by the entrance. His golden brown fur seemed to catch the light like molten honey. He lifted his head as she approached, ears tilting slightly, eyes calm but alert. There was an unspoken greeting in that look, a silent acknowledgement that they were both aware of the unusual thread connecting them, a quiet intuition neither fully understood, yet both felt deeply. Sarah knelt beside him, hand resting lightly on his back. He leaned into her touch, a small sigh escaping him, and for a moment, the room was filled only with the soft rhythm of his breathing and the distant rustle of the other dogs. She smiled, heart swelling. There was something profoundly grounding about this simple act, the warmth of his fur, the gentle pressure of his body, the trust shining in his eyes. Throughout the morning, Cooper moved with deliberate grace. He walked toward a timid dog in the corner, gently nudging it, offering comfort with a soft whine and a careful paw. The shy dog responded, tail wagging faintly, ears relaxed. Sarah watched, amazed at the quiet power of empathy. Cooper wasn't just alerting her to something unseen, he was teaching her about connection, patience, and care. She followed him as he moved through the room, observing small, deliberate gestures, a tilt of the head toward a corner of the ceiling, a slight pawing at a spot near the window, a nudge of her hand when she paused too long. Each motion was calm, intentional, and full of subtle meaning. Sarah's curiosity deepened, but so did her emotional bond with him. At lunchtime, Sarah set herself near the center of the room, clipboard in hand, but her eyes never left Cooper. He sat nearby, occasionally rising to adjust his position or nudge another dog toward comfort. Every movement spoke of his intuition, his gentle guidance, and his connection to the world beyond what humans could perceive. As the afternoon sun streamed through the windows, Sarah began to notice tiny details she had missed before, the way Cooper's ears twitched at the faintest sounds, the careful placement of his paws when he approached an object or dog, the subtle quiver of his tail signaling focus and attention. She began to mimic his observation, letting herself slow down, noticing things she had never seen in the shelter before. Her mind wandered to the past, to moments when she had rescued dogs alone or comforted frightened animals, and realized that Cooper was teaching her something deeper. His intuition wasn't just about seeing the unseen, it was about noticing, understanding, and responding with empathy. By late afternoon, Sarah felt a shift inside herself. She was no longer just a caretaker observing a dog, she was part of a partnership, a quiet team attuned to the subtleties of the world around them. Cooper's gaze often returned to the ceiling or the corners of the room, but now she felt she was seeing through his eyes, or at least understanding the rhythm of his awareness. As the sun dipped lower, painting the shelter in shades of amber and honey, Cooper lay down beside her. She reached out, resting her hand lightly on his head. He leaned into the touch, eyes half closed, serene. Sarah closed her eyes briefly, feeling a calm she hadn't known she needed. The other dogs had settled into their own quiet spaces, the shelter filled with the soft sounds of breathing, a faint rustle of paws, and the occasional whine of curiosity. Yet the energy between Sarah and Cooper was unmistakable, an invisible thread binding them in understanding and trust. She whispered softly, "I think I'm starting to see the world a little closer to your way, Cooper. I think I'm beginning to understand what you feel." He gave a small nudge, tail brushing her arm, as if to say, "Yes, you're learning." As the evening settled, Sarah reviewed her notes, reflecting on the hours she had spent watching him. The quiet intuition he displayed was more than mysterious, it was meaningful. Each gesture, each gaze, each subtle movement revealed not just his awareness of the unseen, but his gentle guidance toward connection and understanding. And in that quiet glow of the shelter, Sarah realized something profound. The bond she shared with Cooper had grown beyond companionship. It had become trust, understanding, and a silent dialogue of hearts, human and dog, instinct and intuition, warmth and awareness. She leaned back, letting her eyes follow the sunlight falling across the floor. Cooper lay beside her, calm, focused, connected. And somewhere, beyond what she could see, the subtle mystery that had drawn them together continued to unfold, promising revelations that neither of them could yet imagine. The morning light was soft and golden, spilling across the shelter floor like a warm blanket. Dust motes floated lazily, drifting through the rays as if suspended in time. Sarah entered with a quiet sense of anticipation, clutching her notebook and a steaming cup of coffee. Today felt different. There was a shift in the air, subtle but unmistakable, a promise that something long hidden might finally reveal itself. Cooper was already alert, sitting near the far corner of the room. His golden-brown fur glimmered in the sunlight, eyes fixed on the ceiling with that same intensity Sarah had grown to respect. He tilted his head slightly, a motion that had come to mean, "Pay attention. There is something here." Sarah knelt beside him, resting her hand lightly on his back. "All right, Cooper, show me," she whispered softly. He responded with a gentle nudge of his nose, then slowly rose and padded toward the corner he had been observing. Sarah followed, notebook in hand, heart racing in quiet excitement. She had reviewed the camera footage from the previous days repeatedly. Shadows had moved in ways that seemed almost intentional. Fleeting shapes had appeared in corners, disappearing before she could fully focus. And yet, Cooper had been unwavering in his attention. Today, Sarah hoped to understand more. Cooper paused in the corner, sniffing the air delicately, his paws moving with a careful precision. Then, as if sensing her hesitation, he looked back at her. His eyes were calm, focused, patient, inviting her to step closer, to notice what he already knew. Sarah crouched lower, scanning the area. The morning sunlight highlighted a small, almost imperceptible crack in the paint along the upper wall, a tiny shadow that shifted with the movement of the sun. She leaned in, brushing her fingers lightly against the wall. Beneath the surface, she felt a faint ridge, a hidden panel, overlooked for years. Her pulse quickened. "Cooper, you were right," she whispered. He wagged his tail faintly, as if acknowledging her discovery without need for words. With careful hands, Sarah eased the panel open. Behind it was a small, dusty compartment, empty, yet resonating with the echoes of the past. Her mind raced. This space had clearly been unnoticed for years. And Cooper had led her to it, sensing its presence long before she had any idea it existed. She stepped back, heart full of awe. Cooper sat quietly beside her, eyes fixed on the hidden compartment, tail swishing slowly in a rhythm that seemed almost ceremonial. The gentle mystery was unfolding, piece by piece, guided entirely by his intuition. Sarah allowed herself a quiet laugh of amazement. "I can't believe you found this, without even seeing it," she said softly. He nudged her hand in response, a small, approving gesture. She felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, not just for the discovery, but for the quiet, steady companionship that had brought her here. Throughout the morning, she explored the hidden compartment with care, documenting every detail in her notebook. There were no clues of danger, no immediate answers, just remnants of something long forgotten. But the sense of purpose was undeniable. Cooper had been watching, sensing, and guiding with unwavering patience. The other dogs lounged nearby, unaware of the revelation unfolding in the quiet corner of the shelter. Yet for Sarah, and for Cooper, the world had shifted slightly, expanded in ways that words could barely capture. She felt a deeper connection, not just to the dog, but to the history of the shelter itself, and to the unseen stories that had taken place within its walls. By afternoon, sunlight bathed the room in warm amber tones. Sarah sat with Cooper by her side, reflecting on the morning. Each gesture he had made, each tilt of his head, each nudge and paw, had been a guide. The gentle reveal was unfolding, layer by layer, in the quietest, most tender way imaginable. She realized then that Cooper's behavior was more than curiosity, it was purpose. Intuition intertwined with empathy, observation with silent guidance. He had not only led her to a hidden space but had taught her to notice, to trust, and to move with patience and care. As the day drew to a close, Sarah looked at him with a soft smile. "I don't know what all this means yet, but I know it's important," she whispered. He rested his head lightly on her knee, eyes half closed, as if to say, "Yes, it is." And in that quiet warmth, Sarah understood that the gentle reveal was only the beginning. There was more to see, more to learn, and Cooper's steady intuition would guide her every step of the way. The soft tension of mystery lingered in the air, but it was no longer frightening. It was comforting, inviting, full of promise. And as Sarah closed her notebook for the day, she felt a deep, abiding connection to the dog who had opened her eyes to the unseen, and to the subtle wonders waiting to be uncovered. The morning light entered the shelter in soft, golden streams, illuminating every corner in a calm, inviting glow. Sarah moved quietly among the dogs, coffee in hand, eyes drifting repeatedly to Cooper. He lay on the rug near the entrance, ears slightly raised, eyes alert and purposeful. There was a rhythm to his movements today that felt different, focused, deliberate, almost urgent, yet still calm. She approached him slowly. "What is it this time, boy?" she asked softly. Cooper's tail gave a small sweep of acknowledgement. Without warning, he rose and padded toward the far corner of the room, the same corner that had held the hidden compartment the day before. Sarah followed instinctively, heart pounding with quiet anticipation. As she drew closer, Cooper paused, sniffing the air, then turned his gaze toward the small corridor leading to the storage area. He gave a soft whine, almost a nudge of insistence, and Sarah's curiosity sharpened. There was something more, something beyond the simple discovery of a hidden panel. She stepped into the corridor, Cooper at her side, and noticed subtle shifts in the light. Shadows fell differently today, highlighting details she hadn't seen before, a faint outline of an old door frame, edges of worn paint, and a small, almost imperceptible indentation in the wall. Cooper's gaze was unwavering, guiding her with quiet assurance. Sarah knelt beside the indentation, running her fingers along the edge. "You found something again, haven't you?" she murmured. Cooper gave a soft nudge with his nose, tail flicking gently. She pressed against the wall, and it shifted slightly, revealing a narrow, hidden compartment behind it. Inside, carefully folded and surprisingly well-preserved, were letters and photographs, remnants of a family who had once visited the shelter long ago. The letters spoke of love, loss, and a dog that had been part of their lives. Sarah felt a lump in her throat as she picked up one of the faded envelopes. Cooper sat beside her, calm, his gaze fixed on her hands as though he understood the emotional weight of the discovery. Tears pricked Sarah's eyes. She realized that Cooper had sensed more than just objects or shadows, he had sensed the emotional significance, guiding her toward a story long forgotten. She breathed slowly, letting the warmth of the shelter and Cooper's steady presence envelop her. The quiet rustling of the other dogs in the background seemed almost ceremonial, a soft chorus to the unfolding revelation. Sarah carefully examined each photograph, each letter, noting the care and love embedded in every word and image. Cooper rested his head lightly on her knee, offering silent comfort and companionship. As the morning sun shifted, casting long, amber shadows across the room, Sarah began to understand the depth of what had happened. Cooper's intuition had led her not just to a hidden compartment but to a connection that spanned time, a bridge between past and present, human and dog, seen and unseen. Her heart swelled with gratitude and wonder. She realized the emotional turning point had arrived. This was more than discovery, it was understanding. Cooper had guided her to a story that demanded recognition, empathy, and care. With careful hands, Sarah arranged the letters and photographs, laying them gently on the floor. Cooper remained alert beside her, tail sweeping softly in quiet rhythm. She spoke softly, almost reverently, "You show me so much, Cooper, more than I could have imagined." He nudged her hand, eyes soft but steady, as if affirming her words. Hours passed in calm reflection. Sarah reread the letters, tracing the handwriting with gentle fingers, feeling the love, loss, and devotion captured within. Cooper occasionally lifted his head, ears perking, and then returned to his meditative observation of the room. The connection between them deepened further, an unspoken dialogue of hearts and intuition. By late afternoon, the room was bathed in golden light. The quiet tension of discovery had shifted into an emotional clarity, a moment of profound understanding. Sarah realized that Cooper's guidance had brought her not just to physical objects but to an emotional truth. The shelter was more than walls and animals, it was a keeper of stories, memories, and connections that transcended time. As the day drew to a close, she sat back on the floor beside Cooper, notebook in hand, documenting the unfolding story. The letters and photographs lay neatly before her, illuminated by the warm evening light. Cooper rested calmly, eyes reflecting the quiet satisfaction of purpose fulfilled. In that moment, Sarah felt a deep and lasting connection to Cooper, to the past, and to the unseen threads that wove through their lives. She understood, fully and profoundly, that this emotional turning point was not an ending but a bridge to what was yet to come. And as the sun dipped lower, painting the shelter in deep amber hues, she whispered softly, "Thank you, Cooper, for showing me more than I could ever see on my own." He leaned gently into her touch, eyes half closed, tail sweeping the floor in quiet rhythm, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they now shared. The emotional turning point had been reached. The story was unfolding in its own gentle, cinematic way, guided by the soft intuition of a dog who had shown her that the heart could see what the eyes could not. The shelter was quiet that morning, yet the air seemed to hum with possibility. Sunlight streamed in through the tall windows, painting everything in soft amber and gold, creating long, gentle shadows across the floor. Sarah moved slowly, heart full of anticipation. Today felt different. Today felt like the culmination of everything she and Cooper had been uncovering together. Cooper was already awake, sitting near the corner where the hidden compartments had been discovered. His eyes glimmered with that same purposeful focus, ears slightly perked. When he noticed Sarah, he gave a soft nudge with his nose, tail sweeping gently across the floor in quiet rhythm. There was no urgency, no panic, only a patient insistence that she follow his guidance. "All right, boy, let's see it," she whispered softly. Cooper rose gracefully, paws patting lightly on the wooden floor, and moved toward the far corridor. Sarah followed, notebook in hand, carefully recording the details of every movement, every subtle gesture. The letters and photographs from the previous day had hinted at something profound, a story waiting to be understood. Today, Sarah hoped to uncover the full truth. Cooper paused at the narrow corridor leading to the small storage room. He sniffed the air, then turned to look at her, a silent question in his gaze. "Are you ready?" She swallowed, her pulse quickening. "I think so, yes." Cooper gave a small, approving tail sweep, then continued toward the end of the corridor, stopping at a spot near the back wall. Sarah noticed the faint outline of a small door, almost imperceptible in the dim light. It was hidden, unnoticed by human eyes for years. Gently, she pushed it open. Behind it was a modest, dust-covered room, sunlight streaming through a tiny window. The room smelled faintly of old wood and paper, the air thick with history. On a low shelf sat a small box, its lid slightly askew. Sarah's hands trembled as she lifted the box, revealing its contents, a collection of personal items, letters, photographs, and a worn, small dog collar. Her breath caught. Cooper sat nearby, eyes focused on her, calm but intense. She picked up a photograph, faded and worn. It showed a family, parents and a child, with a dog remarkably similar to Cooper. The photograph was dated over a decade ago, but the resemblance was unmistakable. Sarah's heart ached gently with the realization, this was not just any lost story. This was a deeply personal connection, a bridge between past and present. Cooper nudged her hand again, tail brushing softly against her arm. She realized, with a quiet swell of emotion, that he had led her here not out of curiosity, but purpose. He had sensed the importance of these items, the emotional truth behind them, and guided her gently, patiently, step by step. Sarah carefully unfolded one of the letters, written in delicate, looping handwriting. It spoke of love, loss, and hope, a family who had once faced difficult times, who had entrusted a small dog with their affection and trust. Their words resonated across the years, capturing the tenderness and care of a bond that transcended time. Cooper's presence beside her made it tangible, immediate. She could feel the connection between past and present, human and dog, woven in threads of trust and intuition. As she read, a quiet realization washed over her. Cooper had been responding not merely to objects or shadows, but to the emotional essence of these items. He had sensed the weight of love, memory, and longing, guiding her to understand what the letters and photographs could not fully convey alone. Every nudge, every tilt of his head, every careful paw had been intentional, a bridge to understanding. Hours passed in quiet reflection. Sarah laid the letters and photographs on the floor, organizing them carefully. She traced the lines of handwriting with gentle fingers, letting the emotional resonance of each word sink in. Cooper remained beside her, patient and steady, the very image of calm understanding. The small dog collar caught her eye next. It was worn, soft, and familiar in a way that made her chest tighten. She held it gently, feeling the story embedded in its fabric, the quiet devotion of a family to their dog, the love that had been passed down across years, and the intuition that had guided Cooper to this hidden truth. She looked at him, eyes wide with awe. "You knew, didn't you, Cooper? You felt it, and you wanted me to see." He leaned into her touch, tail sweeping slowly, acknowledging her understanding. The emotional weight of the discovery was almost overwhelming. Sarah felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, but they were not tears of sorrow, they were tears of recognition, gratitude, and awe. Cooper had revealed something far deeper than she had anticipated. The shelter was not just a place for animals. It was a keeper of stories, a space where past lives, memories, and connections could quietly intersect with the present. She carefully read each letter, taking in the nuances of the family's words. Each one spoke not only of loss, but of resilience, hope, and enduring love. The photographs, though faded, captured moments of joy and companionship, the quiet happiness that comes from sharing life with a devoted animal. And Cooper, calm and focused beside her, had guided her to understand all of it. By late afternoon, Sunlight poured through the small window, bathing the room in warm, golden hues. Sarah sat back on the floor, letting her eyes rest on Cooper. He gave her a soft, approving nudge, tail brushing against her arm. She realized then that the heart-touching truth had been revealed not by human effort alone, but through the quiet, gentle guidance of intuition, empathy, and trust. In that moment, the shelter felt alive in a new way. It was a place of memory, connection, and profound understanding. Cooper's actions had bridged decades, linking the family's past to the present, and showing Sarah that intuition and empathy could uncover truths that reason alone could never reach. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the floor, Sarah whispered softly, "Thank you, Cooper, for showing me more than I could ever see on my own." He rested his head lightly on her knee, eyes half closed, tail moving in quiet rhythm. The emotional weight of the truth settled gently into her heart. Cooper's purpose had been revealed, and with it came a deep sense of peace, connection, and understanding. The bond between human and dog had reached a new depth, one that transcended language, time, and sight. And as the shelter fell into quiet evening, the soft warmth of light and love filling every corner, Sarah knew the story, hidden for so long, would now live on. Not just in letters and photographs, but in her heart, in Cooper's calm presence, and in the gentle, enduring connection they had shared. The heart-touching truth was no longer a mystery. It was alive, breathing softly through the quiet room, waiting to be carried forward with care, empathy, and love. The shelter was bathed in soft morning light, warmer and calmer than it had been in weeks. Golden beams filtered through the tall windows, illuminating dust motes that floated lazily in the air, shimmering like tiny, suspended sparks. The quiet hum of the dog's breathing filled the space, creating a rhythm that was soothing, almost meditative. Sarah stepped inside, holding her notebook loosely in one hand, feeling an unfamiliar yet comforting sense of completeness. Cooper was waiting near the rug at the entrance, tail gently swishing. His golden-brown fur caught the sunlight in a way that made him appear almost luminous. When he noticed Sarah, he lifted his head, eyes calm yet purposefully alert. His gaze held that familiar, unspoken understanding, one that had guided her through days of mystery, discovery, and revelation. "Good morning, boy," she whispered softly, crouching beside him. He leaned into her hand, nudging gently, and she felt the warmth of connection spread through her chest. It was a quiet, steady warmth, the kind that came not from excitement, but from trust, understanding, and the comfort of shared purpose. The letters and photographs from the hidden compartment had been organized, carefully catalogued, and placed in a small box on a low shelf. Cooper had been at her side every step of the way, guiding her not just to the hidden space but through the emotional landscape of its contents. Today, that journey felt complete. Sarah walked slowly through the shelter, glancing at each dog as if noticing them for the first time. Cooper padded beside her, moving with gentle precision. He paused at the timid dog she had noticed weeks ago, nudging it lightly and offering comfort. The dog's tail twitched in acknowledgement, a soft exhale of relief escaping as it leaned into Cooper's presence. Sarah smiled, feeling a deep sense of connection not only to Cooper but to the lives they had touched together. The quiet beauty of the moment was heightened by the gentle sunlight that spilled across the floors. Dust motes danced, highlighting the serene stillness of the space. Sarah paused by the far corner of the room, glancing at the hidden panel she had opened days before. Its secret had been revealed, and yet it no longer held mystery, only quiet significance. Cooper sat beside her, eyes scanning the ceiling and corners as if ensuring all was at peace. Sarah reached down, placing a hand gently on his head. "You've done something incredible, Cooper," she whispered. "Not just finding the story, but showing me how to care, how to notice, how to trust." He leaned into her touch, tail sweeping slowly across the floor. The bond between them, forged through quiet intuition and gentle guidance, felt unbreakable. Sarah realized that the shelter had become more than a place of work. It was a home, a place of stories, memories, and quiet miracles, all brought into focus through the lens of empathy and connection. As the morning unfolded, she watched Cooper interact with the other dogs, subtle gestures of care and understanding woven into every motion. A shy pup approached him cautiously, and he lowered his head, letting the puppy sniff and explore with gentle encouragement. Sarah felt her chest swell with pride and gratitude. This was not just a dog guiding her, it was a teacher, a guardian, and a companion all in one. The sun climbed higher, casting long, soft beams across the shelter. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the full weight of the journey they had shared. The hidden letters and photographs, the subtle movements and nudges, the quiet guidance through unseen mysteries, it had all led to this moment of closure. Cooper had revealed not just a story from the past, but the enduring value of trust, empathy, and attention. She walked to the small window overlooking the yard, sunlight washing her face with warmth. Cooper followed, sitting obediently at her side. Outside, the other dogs played gently, their movements carefree and unhurried. Sarah let her gaze drift, realizing that the shelter was alive with the quiet joy of connection, the bond between human and dog, past and present, intuition and understanding. A soft breeze drifted through the open window, carrying the scent of grass and morning dew. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, letting herself fully experience the calm, restorative energy of the space. Cooper rested his head on her knee, eyes half closed, tail brushing her arm in quiet rhythm. "Thank you," she whispered softly. "For guiding me, for trusting me, for showing me how to see, all of it." Cooper gave a small nudge, eyes meeting hers, and in that gaze, she felt a profound affirmation, a silent acknowledgement that their journey together had brought meaning, understanding, and healing. The shelter itself seemed to settle into the moment, the light, warmth, and calm weaving together to create a sense of quiet resolution. The mysteries had been revealed, the stories uncovered, and the emotional truths laid bare. Yet the journey was not just about discovery, it was about connection, empathy, and the unspoken understanding between two beings who had come to trust and rely on each other. As the afternoon light shifted, painting the room in deep amber and honey, Sarah leaned back beside Cooper, notebook closed and heart full. The quiet rhythm of the dog's breathing, the warm light, and Cooper's steady presence filled the space with peace. She realized that the shelter was no longer just a workplace, it was a place of healing, growth, and quiet wonder. And in that moment, she understood something profound. Cooper had not only revealed the hidden truths of the past, but he had also helped her see the present with new eyes. Every gesture, every glance, every gentle nudge had been a lesson in patience, empathy, and trust. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the floor. Cooper rested his head fully on Sarah's lap now, eyes soft and calm. She stroked his fur, letting herself feel the warmth, the loyalty, the quiet wisdom in his presence. The shelter was alive with connection, trust, and love, an enduring bond between human and dog that would carry forward far beyond this day. Sarah breathed deeply, feeling the culmination of the journey settle in her chest. Every moment of mystery, every quiet revelation, every subtle nudge and tilt of Cooper's head had led to this, an emotional closure that was gentle, profound, and life-affirming. As evening descended, casting the shelter in shades of soft gold and amber, she whispered one final time, "Thank you, Cooper, for everything." He lifted his head slightly, eyes meeting hers, tail giving a slow, contented sweep. And in that quiet exchange, all words were unnecessary. The shelter, the hidden stories, the emotional journey, they had found their resolution. The bond between Sarah and Cooper had deepened into something enduring, a connection of trust, love, and quiet understanding. And in that gentle, cinematic light, surrounded by warmth and peace, the story reached its tender conclusion, healing, whole, and profoundly beautiful.